Good evening, everybody. How's everybody doing? Welcome to our Haitian Black History Month Series 2. Hi, my name is Sam Pierre, and I am the Executive Director of the Haitian American Caucus. We are a global community development nonprofit organization whose mission is to provide access and resources that will foster self-development and success to Haitian communities all over the world. And we're really excited to come to you tonight with an amazing program to talk about our Haitian history, to talk about how you can learn about luminaries and dignitaries that are currently doing amazing work in our Haitian community. Last Friday, we had a program, a really dope program where we talked about all of our Haitian historians and what they've done and how they've impacted American society. But tonight's program, we're going to talk about some current and luminaries who are alive and the work that they're doing here at the Haitian American Caucus. So I hope you guys are enjoying yourself. It's going to be a phenomenal evening. We have a really dope panel of women, right, that are going to come tonight. Last week, we heard the cries, hey, it was all about the guys. Today, we're bringing some heavy hitters to the stage tonight to talk about Haitian history and the importance of learning and knowing where we come from so that we are prepared to be on the journey to where we're going. So I'm really excited. Thank you for watching HAC TV. And if this is your first time coming on to HAC TV, feel free to join us. Go to our website and click www.hacglobal.org/join. Join our organization. It's a free membership to be a part of HAC. Come out and volunteer with us. Do some work with us. We do tons of different programs around workforce development. We do programs around health and wellness. We do programs around ESL. There's so many programs that we do to help our Haitian community grow. So we'd love to have you. Once again, go to our website, www.hacglobal.org/join. Consider becoming a member so that together we can help our community grow. So let's jump right in. Without further ado, I want to invite our panelists on so that we can get this conversation going. So first up, I'd like to bring on Miss Cindy Jean. Cindy, how are you, Cindy?
I'm great, Sam. How are you? Thanks for having me.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you for joining HAC TV. We're really excited. Thank you so much for giving us time on your Friday evening. We understand that you could be anywhere. Excited to be here with the Haitian American Caucus and our viewers and this program. So really excited. Thank you for joining. And I look forward to the conversation. Cindy, tell the community a little bit about Cindy Jean.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I'm going to have to correct you, Sam, because if Wyclef can do it, I can too. So I go by Cindy Jean. And
excusez-moi.
Listen, we gotta carry the heritage everywhere we go, right? So
That's right.
I go by Cindy Jean, but yes, I am currently an assistant head of school at an independent school right outside of New York City. And the core of my work is really focusing on equity and inclusion work within the school. It's a tremendous honor. It is my dream job. I have the opportunity to engage with students and with families and with faculty and with the board on issues related to very much what we're talking about tonight. And prior to this, I was a classroom teacher and a school principal. So just kind of moving through the system of schools.
Cindy Jean. Like Wyclef Jean, who's from Croix-de-Bouquet. Yes. Wyclef is from Croix-de-Bouquet. Our school in Haiti is in Croix-de-Bouquet.
That's right.
So there's tons of connections right there.
There you go.
Right? So we're Haitian out here, so I'm excited. And thank you for being here, Cindy. We applaud all the great work that you're doing with the education system. That is not easy work, right? It's God's work. Right. I'm an adjunct professor. I teach college freshmen and sophomores, so I know the education system, it's God's work.
Yes.
So we want to thank you for the work that you're doing. And we're excited about this conversation that we're going to have today.
Me too.
So thank you for joining us, Cindy. All right, so let's bring in our second panelist. Okay, Bernice Dussault. I hope I said it right.
Close enough. Bernice DeRosso.
DeRosso.
Yes.
DeRosso. You know what?
Yes,
Beatrice will be
yes.
so mad. One of our board members, she has the same last name as you.
Get out.
Well, Beatrice Lourdes DeRosa, her married name, right?
Oh, I have to
So
like
yeah, we
connect.
might have to do some connections there. You know what I
Yes,
mean?
for sure.
How do they say it in Creole? Bernice?
Yep. Yes. With a W. It
Bernice.
sounds like a W. I'm like, where? How?
Bernice, thank you
Yes.
so much for, oh my God, thank you for coming on Friday night and joining us here at HAC TV. We really appreciate this. Haitian American Caucus, like I mentioned earlier, we're all about access to information, right? We understand, we've done case studies, and we understand that communities of color are able to excel once they're given access to information and resources, and they're able to develop themselves, right? That's what a case study came out and said. So we, HAC, we've decided to be that community development organization to give our Haitian community access to information and resources so they can foster development and success, which is our mission. So for you to come tonight to talk to us about, give us some information, I think that's amazing. So, for you and Cindy to be here, it's great. We're excited. I know we have, two big bosses. I don't know how we got these big shot ladies here, but I'm excited that they're here. So let's give them their flowers and let's say thank you. And this is amazing. We really appreciate you for being here. So, Bernice, tell HSCTV about you.
Okay, so just in brief, so like I said, my name's Bernice. I am an infectious disease nurse practitioner. I also am currently a second-year PhD student at Hopkins looking at some of the health disparities related to sexual reproductive health, primarily focusing in on cisgender Black women. And
Okay.
I am first-gen Haitian. So like Sydney mentioned, I'm very passionate about like knowledge of bridging the knowledge deficits as far as like healthcare goes. So I come from like the healthcare lens with it. And
Wonderful.
hats off to you guys who are doing the academic work. It's definitely hard work. Education is so necessary. It impacts all aspects of life. So I definitely appreciate all that you guys do as well.
Wonderful. We're excited. We're really excited to have you, to be with us. And you said PhD student, which is a big deal, because to be able to go through that process, it's not easy. It's not easy at all. So we want to thank you in advance, Dr. Bernice, right? Right? Because we know that you're gonna get there and you're gonna come back and educate our community on things that are important. So thank you again for being here tonight. So why don't we jump into some data, right? The first thing we like to do with this new series is talking about Haitian Americans that are making history, right? Last week we talked about a few folks that even I learned about that were making history in the Haitian community, but these folks are people who already died. Tonight, I want to talk about some folks who are alive. So the first person on our list tonight that we're going to talk about is Kaine Jean-Pierre. Kaine Jean-Pierre is the White House Deputy Press Secretary. So that's the first time a Haitian American has ever been in that role. So she works with the Vice President Kamala Harris. She's on her staff, but she's also taken the podium a few times for President Joe Biden, and that's huge. That's literally, our history. I'm extremely proud of her, not only because she's just amazing and she's in the White House standing for us, but she happened to also have been my professor when I was in graduate school, and I was her favorite student. I don't care if any of my classmates will watch this and say that. Some of them said I was her teacher's pet, blah, 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 whatever. So Kaine was my professor at Columbia when she taught campaigning 101, and my campaign, we won. I was the campaign manager. So my campaign, we won even though it was for what's his name? Former governor of New Jersey, the big guy. What's his name again? It escapes my mind. What's his name? I'll come up with Christie. Yes, thank you, Chris Christie. It was a campaign for Chris Christie to be president. It was a mock campaign. But anyway, long story short, we won. Kaine was my professor there, and I'm really proud of her and the work that she's doing in the White House. What a lot of people don't know is when we were dealing with the issues in Texas, Kaine was very instrumental in explaining to President Biden why this matters, why it's important, and how careful the White House had to treat the response for what was happening in Texas. And I'm really proud of her, and I'm really proud of the work that that they've done. But so, ladies, I mean, we have a woman in the White House. Like, what does that mean? What does that mean to you guys? Like, you know what I mean? I know what it means to me because there's a personal connection there, but I want to hear from you. Like, how does that feel?
For me, I know like what they say, like representation matters. I think it's definitely great to see, especially for women, kids growing up, coming up, to see that they're able to access certain spaces and places. And it kind of gives me a sense of peace knowing that there's someone with a seat at the table who can advocate for those who are voiceless and who do not have the chance to really advocate for themselves. It's a lot of responsibility that I'm putting on her shoulders, but that's what she signed up for. So I'm holding her accountable.
Do a go, like they say in Haitian Creole. She got her back to handle the responsibility. What about you, Cindy?
Yeah, I really appreciate your point, Bernice, about the representation. You know, I think particularly within the Haitian culture, you know, it's often assumed that as a Haitian woman, your path is to be a wife, is to be a mother, right? And even though Haitian women are the backbone, I'm going to say it, we are the backbone. We hold down the home, we hold down the family. But it seems to be a very sort of binary track, right? It's either, you know, you stay in your home with your parents until you're married, or you get a husband and then you move on with your own family. But I think she represents the possibilities that exist for all women, but especially for Haitian women. And I think every time I look at her, I think to myself, why can't you do it all, right? You can be the wife, you can be the mother, you can be a boss, you can do all the things that, you know, God has ordained you to do, right? And I think that is an absolute, that's the image I want my daughter to see, right? That's the image I want my sisters to see. I want my cousins to see. And I think, you know, for me, as somebody who grew up in a family where I was taught that I could do anything I wanted to do, I love seeing that representation.
Wonderful. I love it. And you really hit a good point there. Seeing that makes you understand and realize that you can do it too, right? Mm-hmm. She was the chief of staff for Kamala Harris's vice presidential campaign, right? So that means she helped elect the first Black woman vice president, which means that one day she can be the vice president or the president herself one day. And for women to see that, I think that is huge. So I'm really excited about that. And a quick little plug. So HAC, we have this, our Black History Month Haitian contributions pamphlet here, where you know, we have all the information to all the Haitians that are doing greatness on different sections here, and we're gonna have it available on our website, but we're also gonna have it at our office. So if any of you, the viewers, are watching and would like to swing by our office, we're on 495 Flatbush Avenue. We're gonna put some of these pamphlets at our front desk on the second floor, so that you can grab them, so you can actually learn. So it's cultural Haitian facts from New York City. We have business, government, law enforcement, street namings, the media, activism, education, medicine, and faith, right? So we look forward to sharing information, because that's what's so important. That's what we're all about. All right, second person up is Raoul Peck, mostly notable for recent films, Murder in Pico in 2014, I Am Not Your Negro 2016, and The Young Karl Marx in 2017. He was born in Port-au-Prince, Haiti. Peck lived for a time in Zaire and worked as a journalist and photographer. He later graduated from the Berlin Film Academy and made dozens of short films. So, even I'm just learning about Raoul Peck tonight as well, right? So I'm happy to know that we have Haitian leaders in every single industry. And one thing that my father used to tell me since I was young was, there's not an industry. There's not an industry where we're not leading, where we're not involved, where we're not making innovation happen. So I'm really excited to learn about, Raoul Peck tonight and what he's done in the community. So tonight we learned about Kaine Jean-Pierre, we learned about Raoul Peck, and I kind of want to jump into the conversation and ask you ladies a few questions, so that we can really have this conversation, right? So my first question, I'm going to go to you, Cindy. Cindy Jean.
Yes.
So I went to public school, right? I went to public school. Well, I went to private school first, and then Haitians, right? Haitians put their kids in private school, and then they ripped me out and put me in a public school, a public high school, and I just don't remember hearing about Haiti, right? And the Haitian Revolution. Because if we talked about the Haitian Revolution, then we got to talk about what's next after that. Slavery, right? So we can't talk about Haiti. Oh my God, let's not talk about the Haitians, because then we might have to talk about slavery.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So then if we're not talking about Haiti, we're not talking about slavery, we're not talking about Black leaders. Why? Why do you think why is this such a domino effect? Can you break that down for us, Cindy?
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head when you said, then we're not talking about Haitian leaders. I think this year, these last 2 years in particular, have, for me, solidified the kind of narrative that is comfortable for the rest of the world in terms of understanding who and what Haiti is, right? It is a place of poverty. It's a place of, political unrest. It's a place of disparity and fractiousness. And I think that's the narrative we're comfortable with. But when we start talking about the first free Black nation, when we start talking about the luminaries that you're highlighting currently or in the past, when we start talking about the incredible exports that came from this tiny island, we start to shift that narrative, and then we become uncomfortable, right? And part of it too is we have to understand who gets to control that narrative. I'm particularly fond of telling stories. I think if there's any advice I give to people is to learn how to write down your own story, because then it's yours. No one can take it from you. No one can redefine it for you. You get to have control over the story that you tell about yourself. And I think that's true around the ways in which we teach history, right? Whether it's here in the US or elsewhere. When you start to think about who gets to control that narrative, that becomes the point of view that's then disseminated and accepted as truth. And then you don't know Haiti as anything but a place of, of calamity and disaster. And so when I think about, now as a grown woman, and I failed to mention that I too am getting a doctorate, and I'm focusing on Black women in leadership and social cohesion. You said you had the heavy hitters, Sam.
Wait a minute. Put me back on the screen. Wait a minute.
Can't.
You got good PhD tonight?
Listen, this is what I'm saying. People are sleeping on Haitians. We don't play.
Let me get my flag. Come on. But I want to put that boom, because this is.
He took out the flag.
No, we got 2 PhDs. Oh!
But this is what I'm saying. I mean, your background, Bernice's background, we are actually not the exception. We're the rule. We are the rule. And it's unfortunate that, we don't get to see Haitian people, Black people, women, first gens in this kind of atmosphere, right? We think of our population as, welfare. We think of our population as food stamps. We think of our population as, not being able to survive on their own. And I can't begin to tell you how far from the truth that is. And I'm not saying that it's not a part of it, right? That certainly is a part. We've had to deal with multiple earthquakes. We've had to deal with lots of civil unrest, but that's not the full definition of who we are. Right.
100%. It's not our whole story.
It's not our whole
It's not our whole
story.
story. Wow.
Right. I
Yeah.
That is deep. Bernice, jump in. Like,
Yeah, no,
you
I
know,
1,000% agree. And big ups to Sydney. I love to hear it. Yeah, I think like she mentioned, storytelling is really big. I think that's one of the things that's a little disheartening to see the disconnect between younger generations and older generations now, because there's
right,
so much to learn when you
right,
hear their stories, because it's coming from a lens of empowerment and strength versus the narrative that we don't control, which I think contributes to like this defeatist attitude where
hmm,
we're not capable of anything or we're not capable of doing stuff. But when if we really truly understood our history and knowing the role we played in being one of the first to be freed,
right,
it's really, I think it would empower us and it would like lends us a sense of strength where we can tackle on anything, where we wouldn't feel like we're the exceptions to the rules. There's Haitian billionaires, millionaires that are doing amazing work and no one talks about it. No one even
right.
knows. You know, when you see certain parts of Haiti that's like disparaged, you think that's all there is. But when I went to visit in 2016, I was even blown away by some of the places in
When you see my
Haiti.
beautiful beaches, when you see
Right.
my beautiful beaches, when you
Yes.
see my beautiful hotels, when you go to
Yeah,
Caribe, no on la Caribe, you go to a rooftop and you forget you in Haiti.
exactly.
You think you're in America because of all the lights and the
Exactly.
Wi-Fi and the amazing food and everything natural.
Exactly. And then people get to they cherry pick the best parts of us and then
Right,
almost make it seem like it's a Americanized version of us, but it's really not. That's our culture. You know,
right,
they appropriate it when it's good for the gander, but like other times, like, oh, and Trump didn't help the narrative as well with what he said.
right,
Um, so like, it's unfortunate. I think controlling the narrative, having more people in positions of like power being the face will help move things forward and help move the narrative forward, especially when we're trying to bridge that disconnect from younger population to
right.
the older population as well.
No, 100%. And I'm so happy that you ladies talked about, the education piece, right? Because that's where it comes from. That's where we learn everything. And education como se la cae, right?
Mhm.
That, like,
Mhm.
education starts from home. And I think sometimes we get away from that because we're caught up in the hustle and the bustle. I mean, especially the two of you who are PhD students, right? Like you guys, I'm surprised you guys are even breathing, right? Because you guys have to read tons of books, dissertations.
We
You have to
look good. We
defend your
look good, right? For
oh
the struggle, right?
see, PhDs are not allowed. PhDs are not allowed out of the library. So I'm surprised that you guys are even out. So to be able to have that, to be able to understand that is huge, right? So I'm so happy that you guys touched on that. But I want to tap into something real quick. This critical race theory, right? And HAC, we're gonna have a series of programming around that specifically. But there's some Haitians that are watching this right now, and I don't think they understand that there's a conversation. And I know to my viewers, we're talking about Black history and the amazing work that we're doing, but we can't talk about Black history without touching, you know, people not wanting to hear about our history, right? And I think Haitians we as Haitians, I'm not allowed to have views on behalf of people, but my personal views is that we should feel a way about that, right? That people just don't want to hear about critical race theory. And if you don't want to hear about critical race theory, that's you automatically saying you don't want to hear about the Haitian Revolution. That's how I feel, right? Personally. So I'm wondering, Cindy, if you could, so take a tapel sujet tout petit. Just touch
No problem.
the subject a little bit.
Throw a little water on it.
You
Just a
know,
little
yeah,
bit.
throw a little water, laugh at a default. Let me be a Haitian TV host. Laugh at a default, laugh at a default, laugh at a default. Hey man, we're gonna tap. Time is running out, but we're gonna tap the critical race theory just a little bit. Cindy,
Yeah.
let's get into it just a little bit. Talk to us.
Yeah, and I'll be succinct. I think that I love that you're going to be doing a whole series on this because it's definitely at least a 3 hour, conversation just on this subject alone. But what I want to make very, very clear is that critical race theory cannot be taught in K through 12 classrooms. So I need people to take that out of their heads. This is a theoretical framework that folks like Bernice and myself and lawyers and researchers use to understand systems, to understand how things function. You can't go into a second grade classroom and say, here is a book on critical race theory, now let's talk about it. That's ludicrous. So it's funny to me that, you know, there's a clip of one anchor who's like, I don't even know what it is, but I don't like it. Right. So they don't actually even understand what critical race theory is, let alone be able to even conceptualize it. Right.
Gotcha.
And so I think I go back to this piece around who's controlling the narrative.
Right.
Being able to knock down critical race theory is just another way to try to regain some power and control around the narrative. Right. And I think of Toni Morrison's words, right, that, you know, distraction, right? The very function of racism is distraction, right? And that's what this is. This is distraction. This is trying to pull away from the amazing work that has happened both on the ground and politically in the last 7 years. And so, and listen, I'm not here to debate what side of the field you're on. That's not my point. My point is just quite simply, if you allow them to shine flashy things at you to distract your attention, you're going to lose your focus. You're going to lose the purpose of what you're trying to achieve. And it's easy to do that through fear.
Wow.
Right?
That's really deep. So much to unpack there, Cindy. And I look forward to that conversation. Before we go to Bernice to hear what her point is, I just want to remind any new viewers that are coming here, you are here tuned into our Haitian Black History program, Series 2, with two amazing scholars and PhD students, de Godokte, Gosomodo, that are here tonight with me to talk about how Haitian history is important, but also to tap into the education portion of it. If you have not joined the Haitian American Caucus yet, you are wasting time. Go to our website, www.hacglobal.org/join, so that you can be a part of this conversation. You can be a part of our network, and you can get valuable information and resources that's going to help foster self-development and success for you and your family and your friends. So thank you again for joining. Thank you for watching this. And I hope you are enjoying our program so far. So, Bernice, let's jump to you, Bernice. So talk to us. What's your thoughts?
So yeah, I agree with a lot of what Sydney touched on, but I will give a little, not pushback, but just a different perspective that I think to some extent we can teach certain aspects of critical race theory starting young to lay that foundation that's going to be necessary, because like that quote says, like, if you don't know history, you're doomed to repeat it. I think there's critical aspects of critical race theory that will help children really understand their background, really understand where they're from, especially when you're talking about like first gen Haitian American children, to really understand, like, you know, some of these things that you're taught, like as far as like slavery, that's not like where it begins and ends. There's so much more to it. It gives them a little bit more of the range. But I do agree that this is like critical race theory is primarily in the academic space. And I think to some extent that's a little bit of gatekeeping with that, and gatekeeping of knowledge, which I find to be severely problematic, which contributes to all of these issues that we see, whether it's in healthcare or in education. And I think the biggest fear around having the conversation surrounding critical race theory is that it will hold people accountable. It will realize that it will make people see that they owe a debt to some people, and that there are some accountabilities that have been skirted for so long. And I think that's what's really being avoided. No one wants to be held accountable and responsible for some of the things that we see up until present day. They want to pass it off as, oh, that's the past, let's move on and let it go, without ever addressing it and addressing how those things still perpetuate health disparities, education disparities, and some of the things we see today. So that's my contribution to that.
Wow. So my mind is it's running because this is so good. The information is very rich here. So So educate. There's fear. I'm hearing that there's fear of losing power, right? Fear of losing power, fear of losing control, which sounds very similar to what how the French rather felt when it came to Haiti and the revolution, right? And I don't know if everyone knows exactly how that went down, right? Where Haiti had to literally pay in order to have our revolution, and and um and and my co-founder Sam Darwin last week talked about how there may have been a president that thought that he was a Frenchman, and where there was a lot going on, right? And there was a lot going on, and we're gonna actually do a series around that as well. I want to tie that all back into power, right? Two women, who are very powerful. You guys are, entering in the education space at the highest level, right? I remember reading one of Dr. King's memoir. I'm a huge student of Dr. King, and he talked about as a PhD, he was the most educated person in the courtroom. So he was being judged by judges and lawyers and peers, but he was the most educated person in that whole courtroom as a PhD, right? But yet he didn't have any power, right? Right? He didn't have any power. So I want to tie this back into women and education, and mortality rates, and how that is all tied in, right, with our history, by them trying to control power, right? Because we know that there's some laws that happened where they tried to control. We're talking about power, right? They tried to control, how women can make decisions about their bodies and their health care, right? And I noticed that this all comes from people who are trying to not lose power and control power. So I wanted to bring it to you, Bernice, and if you can talk a little bit about how do you see that tie in, that even till today in 2022, women are feeling like there are people out there who want to control their power and their decision-making process around reproductive health.
Okay. Yeah. So as women, it's like we kind of intersect at 2 points of like marginalization. Like we are in a patriarchal society, and then we deal with racism and as well. So especially as Black women. So as like many people know, the maternal mortality rates have been really out of control, and Black women in particular have been disproportionately impacted by it. And then when you layer on different laws that have been being attempted to be passed around abortion and further limiting women's reproductive rights, you really get to see how that could further create greater maternal mortality rates. And Haitian people in particular carry some of the highest maternal mortality rates in the Western Hemisphere. So as a Haitian woman, again, we're further marginalized by these things. And what you see in Haiti with abortions being illegal, and when you get into all the illegal abortions, the deaths surrounding that, and then women who migrate here and carry that same mindset stigma, you see how they navigate healthcare systems. Like oftentimes, when we do cultural sensitivity, you realize like they're not going to look you in the eye. They don't question doctors because they see that like we're in a position of authority. So they don't really advocate for themselves. And you hear the celebrities like Serena Williams, when she said the doctors weren't listening to her, Beyonce. So then when you think about the cultural context as like a Haitian woman who naturally may not even advocate for herself in comparison to a woman who would and still has those adverse outcomes, that like adds on to the potential dangers for women navigating these spaces. That's why I think representation, quality representation matters, because we know all skin folk are not kinfolk. So I won't even get started on that. But we need quality representation with people who are passionate and care about that, because women are dying, and we're dying at disproportionate rates. And we're dying whether we're in Haiti dealing with it being illegal, and here it's a major concern. And, you know, the CDC came out and said, you know, during COVID, maternal mortality rates increased. So it's not a problem that's going to get rid of. And that's
right.
Yeah. And that's where all the focus that has already been put in. Everybody has been talking about this since Beyonce had her baby. And yet it's increased during COVID. And why is that? Like, why is the focus still not there? Why are we always the last to be considered? Why are we like not prioritizing this issue? And I think one of the major reasons is that as women in a patriarchal society, we oftentimes prioritize men issues, and we put our issues on the back burner because we are on the forefront of our family. So we put that first and put our sex second. And it's really causing a lot of issues and deaths, unfortunately.
Wow, that was powerful. That was really powerful. And there's so much to unpack. But I want to, Cindy, would you like to add anything to what Bernice talked about?
Yeah, thanks, Sam. I mean, Bernice said so much so beautifully, particularly when you talk about that gendered racism and how, you know, women are up against, you know, certain taxes, if you will, throughout their entire journey to where you're at, Bernice, right? Like if you think about your class right now, right, what does that representation look like? But I think also, you know, you make me think about a parallel that exists between the education field and the health field, which is trauma-informed care, right? When we think about how we're going to negotiate with our students when they're dealing with incidences around, you know, genderism, racism, sexism, whatever it might be, those are traumatic moments. And all of those, right? It's like the death by 1,000 paper cuts. It's all of these moments that is, addition by subtraction, right? You're taking away from their desire, their motivations, their possibilities, right? And so you end up with the lack of that quality representation that Bernice is talking about. When I think about my own lived experience, you know, as a Black woman, as a Black professional,
right.
I worked really hard to get a Black financial advisor. I worked really hard to get a Black doctor. But I had to do a lot of work. I couldn't just go on Google. In fact, I had to really do my research. And the moment that, you know, we lose one of those folks, you've lost so much. Right. It's not like I actually have the opportunity just to say, oh, OK, that's fine. Let me just go back to the drawing board. It's a lot of work. Now, imagine if I could have taken all of that effort and time and applied it to my job or applied it to my research. Right. So again, here we're seeing the element of distraction that's pulling away from the reserves that we have to be excellent. And despite that, right. And I think that's something that I love about Haitian people, that despite all the things that we've had to deal with, the mise that's written on the palm of our hands, we're still out here killing it. Right. But it shouldn't have to be that. Right. And so that trauma-informed care is so critical because there's so much reparation that has to happen in order for us to get to the place where we need to be. We can't ignore that.
Wow. When you said trauma-informed care, can you talk a little bit about that real quick, Cindy? Because when I hear trauma-informed care, I think about mental health.
Yeah.
Right. And I think you know, HAC, we talk a lot about mental health. We do a lot of mental health work. And as of recent, we've partnered with an organization called the National African American Mental Health Association.
Yes.
First of its kind. There is no National African American Mental Health Association out there. So HAC is so excited and we're proud. We call it NAMA, about the work that NAMA is doing. We had the Vice President of Community Engagement, Mac. He was on our program last Friday, and he talked about the work that NAMA is going to be doing around mental health. and how they're going to be managing all of HAC's mental health moving forward, mental health programs moving forward. But you talked about some trauma piece, so I want to see how we can connect that. And I also wanted to plug in Nama because I'm a huge Nama fan. Nama. So everybody stay tuned to learn more about Nama. You are going to see a lot of them on HAC TV. But yeah, Cindy, talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I'm also a huge fan of Nama, so it was nice to hear you shout that out. I'm looking forward to learning more about them. When I think about trauma-informed care in the educational spaces, it hits directly with the work that I do as an equity practitioner, because I think we can often almost minimalize the impact that even our youngest students, right? I'm talking about 4-year-olds, 5-year-olds, 6-year-olds, all the way through high school and higher ed can have when they're trying to develop a healthy sense of self, right? That self-identity, while in the public discourse or even in their own institutions, they're wrestling with being marginalized, right? And so what does that look like as a young Black woman myself, right? Growing up and trying to claim everything that I can be, but seeing images of Black women as, you think about all the caricatures out there, right? As sapphires, the angry Black woman or the sexualized Black woman, right? All of those things are traumatic, and we don't talk about it like that. But
okay, wait. You got to unpack that. You got to unpack that. No, you got to unpack that because there are males out here, Black males, Black men, and I know this. I know. This is important, and we'll have more conversations about that. But there are Black men who don't understand that what you just said right now. So I want you to unpack that for my brothers out there who need to understand that it's not that women are angry Black women. Sometimes it's the perpetuation of the narrative. So please break that down for the Black man.
Sam, we about to take this to a whole different
break that down for the Black man right now.
But you know what I'm gonna say too, Sam, is I'm not here to blame any group, right? I think to your point, it's this narrative that is, it's the waters we swim in, right? It's the narratives that are out there that we just start to be conditioned to believe as true. And so when a Black woman asks for a little bit more in a relationship, right, with a Black man, right, well, why are you behaving that way? And often it's because the Black man has been characterized as being, other kinds of identifiers for them as well, right? So you're running this tension. White people, right? White people who are characterized as being the slave owner. There's so many allies out there, right? So we can't live in this binary because it only hurts us. It hurts us individually, it hurts us as a collective, and it continues to create those kinds of relationships that those in positions of privilege and power want for us, right, to live, right? And so, I'm not a relationship expert. I don't even, I can't even go down that path. But what I can say is this is why mental wellness matters. This is why you need to talk to a therapist. Unpack this stuff for yourself, right? Start to see how did you portray, Black women in your spaces? How, what is it that you believe about a healthy sense of self and identity? Right. Because when we start putting those conversations in together, when we start having these conversations and aligning these identities, we're only creating more barriers, right, and division. And that's why I believe in trauma-informed care in the world of equity practice, because it allows us to ask these really meaningful questions around, well, how did we get here, and what do you need?
Whoa. Okay, Bernice, I'm gonna hand you the mic. But Cindy, please hold on to that piece. How did we get here? I want you to hold on to that piece. Can we buy that closely?
You got it
very close. Bernice, I want you to talk a little bit about your thoughts on everything that we just spoke about.
Yeah, I loved every single aspect of it. And I think, for future conversations, definitely about how it influences relationships among Black women and Black men in particular. I think that's definitely an interesting conversation to have. But in the academic space especially, that's why I'm big on, like, if we're going to do trauma-informed care, we need to dismantle systems altogether. from how, fellowship applications, how they re-traumatize people by making them tell their stories just for a little piece of the pie.
Say that again, sis.
Yes,
say it again.
They're never ready to have those conversations. And it's just really for almost like gambling. And it's like for a small piece of the pie. A lot of us are doing passion work that aren't readily funded. They're not the big dollar generating things because there's not a system that cares. So you're re-traumatizing people, having them speak about their most vulnerable and intimate moments, only to say, okay, we'll let you know like if you'll get this fellowship or not. So like if we're truly going to talk about trauma-informed care and equity, health equity, we need to dismantle systems. And until we're having a conversation about dismantling systems, we're not having genuine solution-based conversation. That's just my 2 cents. But since we're still swimming in this system, how to navigate it is through education. That's really the only way to navigate it, through education, through empowering and really knowing your history. Because until you know that, and until you're able to speak for yourself and really understand what consent is, consenting and having boundaries, setting up these boundaries to say, hey, I'm not comfortable having to use my trauma to lead. Or even when we talk about like tokenism, like certain spaces will hire one Black person and say, oh, come share your story of how you've made it this far. And it's almost like othering you in such a way to make it seem like you're an exception instead of the rule. But when you look at their leadership board, it's like, there's no representation there. So why are you using my story to perpetuate something you truly support? So you see it in that sense, and then it affects all aspects of life, how it gets into the healthcare space. People are coming in my space as far as like sexual and reproductive health. You see how the power dynamics go with people getting STIs over and over again, the power dynamics in their relationships, how they're never unpacking the trauma, or even how we re-traumatize people in the research space, because we, especially in qualitative research, where we ask them to share their stories, their most intimate stories, for research sake, but we're not offering them anything for it. Like, we get all this information, we throw out a publication, but what do the communities get? So I'm very big on, like, if we're truly doing equitable work, I encourage IRBs to really question, what are you going to do with this data? How is it going to impact the communities? How are you going to disseminate this information back to the communities to empower them, to really open their eyes and to educate them? Because, a lot of our publications are behind a paywall that the communities that helped contribute to this work don't even have access to. If we're no longer in the academic space, we lose access to it unless we pay for it. So there's so many problems. I could go on and on, but it's a big problem. And that's why I am very happy to hear about the work that's being done looking at mental health for Black people, because we've been historically traumatized and re-traumatized over and over again. And until we could unpack that in a safe space, in a dismantled system, I think we're just going to continue to see the disparities that we see overall.
Wow. Bon. Okay. Magan Bush from Bali. I'm just like, because like I feel, how they say, I feel I feel heard or targeted or whatever. Like, I'm thinking about my applications, and I'm thinking, I feel like the traumas that I have to talk about, just to get in to some of these. But wow. This is like the first time I really thought about it in the way that you just, because the deeper the story, the better the candidate, right? Especially if you're Black, which is crazy. So if my NAMA audience, my NAMA people are here, let's talk about unpacking that topic in one of our future series, right? Because that alone, I feel like you was talking about me, Brittany. So you know what I mean? I might need some therapy. I got a therapy session tomorrow. I might need to bring that up with my therapist. So that right there was deep.
I love to hear Black men in therapy, by the way. I love to hear it.
Speaking of Black men in therapy, there's a question that came up that one of our one of our viewers asked the question and said, how do we make it safe for Black men to tell their stories, especially when in relationship with Black women? Right now, I know that's a whole nother topic, but I do want us to touch on that because we got viewers that are asking questions. Cindy Jean, like, can you want to take a stab at this? Cindy Jean.
Thanks, Sam. Yeah, the first thing I'm gonna say, and it may not sound very kind, but if you are in a relationship with someone, if you are in a relationship with someone, whether you are male or female or other, and you can't tell your story in that relationship, you need to re-examine your relationship. If you can't find the space to be vulnerable, then you may have to make that really tough, courageous decision to step back, if even for a moment, to process that story on your own. And if you find that you can be back in that relationship, then do that. But you have to understand that the process of being able to reclaim your story, as we're talking about right now, needs to happen independent of anybody else. You've got to be able to figure out how to do that. Now, professionals will help you. Good friends will help you. Good family will help you. Those who love you will help you. But you cannot rely on those relationships to go through that process. So I think we all owe it to ourselves to first make space so we can offer ourselves grace to go through that process and the hurt and the pain and the courage that it takes. And also to offer that to others. But it's just like putting on the oxygen mask on yourself before you can do it to somebody else. You've got to figure out how to be able to navigate that on your own before you can rely on being able to tell that story in that relationship. And you find that you can't, you got to reevaluate that relationship.
Get out that relationship. Get out that relationship. That's what I'm hearing. Dr. Jean is saying. Buenis, jumping.
I agree 1,000%. Holding accountable as far as the choices and preferences that you have, because you might be having a preference for women who may not necessarily lean with some empathy that you may be looking for. And in addition to that, I would say really examining the roles that you're adding onto the woman you're in a relationship with, because sometimes we're expecting to just add onto her plate. And with this strong Black women archetype and stereotypes, we're expected, just because we have survived systems that were meant to break us and we happen to survive it, people expect us to be able to survive and just take on so much. So I always encourage men to really examine what you're expecting of your partner. Is it reasonable? And is it something that maybe you need to unpack with a therapist? Because we often make the women in our lives our therapists, our cooks, our everything. And, everyone has a certain amount of bandwidth, and you really need to examine if you're allowing her to rest. Black women resting, it almost seems like it's a luxury and not a need. So I really encourage men to unpack that and see if maybe you're putting on too much or the expectations are not there. Not to say you don't deserve empathy, and to be able to be transparent. And that goes into the choices you're making and the women that you're choosing, but definitely see if you're expecting something out of her that she may not have the range to. We're not therapists.
Wow. So, okay. So a few things. One, everybody needs to join HAC. If you're watching right now, run to the computer, join HAC, become a member. www.hacglobal.org/join. Become a member now. That's one. Two, we're talking about Haitian history and the powers that be, but somehow we slid into relationships and mental health and therapy and education. So many ideas running through my head, and people are making comments and saying that this is so good and asking questions, and I am elated because this is really, really good for our community to have the conversation. And I think that's why HAC is here, and that's why we have our HAC TV and have these platforms so that we can hear it from the professionals. right? We have deux gros autobrés, Dr. Potomita here with us today that are talking about issues that traditionally are not spoken about, not in the boardrooms, not in the classrooms, not in the kitchen table, especially not in the churches, right? And we need to start having more conversations like that. So I just wanted to reset the clubhouse room here and let everybody know that you need to be a part of what HAC is going on, what HAC has going on, and the National African American Mental Health Association, NAMA, and the programs that they're going to produce. I'm just so excited. I'm excited to just be a viewer, just be a fly on the wall to hear about the programs that NAMA is going to put out there. Shout out to the executive director and the amazing work that she's doing with NAMA. I'm excited. So, Cindy, I want to bring it back to you because I tell you to hold on to that topic, but I think you did have another point, to what Bernice was saying. So I want to do that. And the producers, y'all gonna have to let me go on a little longer today. No, I'm exercising some executive powers here. We may have to go on an extra 10 minutes because there's so much to impact here. We got to talk about it. We don't talk about it. So, Mr. Producers, I need 10 more minutes. Cindy, let's go.
I'll be quick, but Bernice, you reminded me of something, and I just loved having this conversation with you so much. I've learned so much from you. This has been so fantastic for me. But I wanted to bring this back to a piece that, really where we started with this, right? Which is on children, on education, on thinking about telling our stories. And I think it's really important that whether we're talking about how we help Black men process, how we help to change the narrative, start with young people. I cannot emphasize that enough. When I think about my son, when I think about my daughter, everything I say to them develops that voice that they then repeat to themselves. And that's the voice that's going to carry for years and years. So when my son starts to cry, I don't say to him, why are you crying? Right? I don't say to him, why are you showing all this emotion? Right? Talk to me, baby. What's on your mind? Right? When I see my daughter, right, we're thinking about her beauty, her intellect, all of these things. It starts with how we educate at home, Sam, which is a point that you brought up before. And I really think that is, I'm not saying give up on us, right, as the adults. I think, I think this tonight is a perfect example of how we are making forward steps. But I cannot emphasize enough why I believe in education is because whether you're an educator, an auntie, a mom, an uncle, whatever, you can start planting those seeds so we don't have to come back, right? Part of my fear in the Haitian community, particularly around wellness, we don't talk about it. We don't talk about these issues, right? We would rather suffer in silence. We'd rather suffer alone because we don't need people to know our business, right? But actually, we need each other. So we do need to know each other's business so we don't repeat, this trauma that exists in our community. So start with the little ones.
That's really good what you just mentioned, because a lot of times there are issues that are happening that a lot of people don't want to talk about, right? Where issues are happening in the house, right? Moms and dads they're not getting along. They're pretending for the sake of the children, and now the children are picking up that this is normalcy, right? So if I'm having issues with my partner, instead of dealing with it, I'm walking away and then go outside and pretend like this is, it's flowers. That's the standard way to live, but in actuality, it's not, right? I'm hearing you say that. I'm hearing other issues. I'm hearing, there might be an uncle that's doing certain things that they shouldn't be doing, right? And that we need to address it, right? So that it doesn't happen again and it doesn't repeat in other generations that might think that it's okay, right? These are all these topics that I'm hearing, I'm hearing you ladies talk about, and this is important because it's taboo, like you said. It's taboo to have these conversations, but I'm excited to know that Haitian American Caucus, HACTV, we're here to have these conversations, and we want to create that platform for people to talk and for people to hear. Cindy, I want to go back to you again. I don't know if you got a chance to tap into what Bernice was saying before, but I don't know if you still had that thought, but you talked about, okay, good, we're good to go. Wow. Okay. So, ladies and gentlemen, what a phenomenal program. What a phenomenal program. There's more to come. There's more to come. There's so many topics. And if anyone is out there, I want to open this. I want to give everyone an opportunity. If you are out there and you have a topic for the Haitian American Caucus or for NAMA on programs or issues that you'd like to talk about, I'm going to please ask you to feel free, and producers, if you guys can put our info at hacus.org. If you guys can put that ticker on the bottom of the screen, please. Info at hacus.org. Please send us an email with your topic, right? Because one of the things that we're doing very differently this year is that we want to do programs around the topics that our community want to hear or want to learn more about, right? So please, if anyone out there, you've been watching our program and you're compelled to want to learn more about a topic, please email us at info@hacus.org. You can address it to either, just say to our program director. Shout out to our program director, Regina. And just feel free to just share your topic. We will definitely get it out to our folks over at NAMA, because as NAMA is managing all of our mental health programming, and we're going to look forward to bringing some of these topics to the community and bringing experts such as Bernice and Dr. DeRosso and Dr. Jean to the table so that we can continue to have these conversations. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us. I want to hand it back to our doctors for any last final words, any last final comments to our viewers. We'll start with Dr. Bernice first.
Okay, so I really enjoyed this opportunity to really get to speak to you guys. I really enjoyed the conversation. I hope to continue collaborating and dismantling some of these systems moving forward. I just encourage people, silence kills. There's that quote that says, if you're silent about your pain, they'll kill you and say you enjoyed it. So I really encourage people to take ownership over your stories, over your lived experiences, and really know that you could change the narrative and to really understand your history, because that's what's really going to be empowering. Sometimes when you learn something, really question what is it in this narrative that is missing, and really look to fill in those gaps. And you might find that the things that you learn are more empowering than anything else. And I hope you guys were able to take away something from this conversation, and hopefully I'll see you guys again. Thank you.
All right, we're giving it up. Listen, Dr. Bernice, we look forward to learning about all the great work that you're going to be doing in the future. We wish you continued success. We want to give you your flowers now. We want to thank you for even getting this far in your journey. We want to hear about what you're doing. The Haitian American Caucus is here. We want to support you all the way to the end of your journey. And, our program director, Regina, just said, so much value. Thank you so much, Sam, Cindy, and Bernice. We appreciate you. Shout out to Regina, who is our program director. And I think this is great. And thank you so much, Bernice. We look forward to celebrating you. We look forward to letting the world know that you are our Haitian history right here today. You are part of Haitian history, and we look forward to celebrating you. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
And thank you for being a part of HAC TV.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Dr. Jean, last words for our viewers, Dr. Jean.
Has a nice ring to it, doesn't it?
Yes, it does.
Well, I just really want to say what an honor it was to be here this evening. I really could not think of a better way to spend an hour of my day. Bernice, so wonderful to meet you. I hope we continue these conversations. As we know, we are stronger together. Union fait la force. So I'm really looking forward to continue conversations with HAC. Sam, you are amazing. This work you're doing is phenomenal. And I think the one thing I would offer is don't ever underestimate the power of your voice and the power of your story. Sometimes we play small because we think we have to, or because we think that there are bigger fish out there. But I cannot begin to tell you that it's further from the truth. It all starts with one individual, one voice, one story that then starts to echo and ripple throughout history. And I love that we are making history tonight. We continue to make history together. And I can't wait to hear your stories and to hear how you are all making history. So thank you again for allowing me to be a part of this conversation. I feel inspired and I'm ready to keep rolling up my sleeves and doing the work.
Thank you so much, Dr. Jean. We look forward to having you back on our programming at HAC TV via our partner NAMA. We celebrate you as well. Thank you for giving us so much valuable insight and information. I'm so excited because I might have to steal y'all from, for the education committee too, because our education committee, we're going to be having conversations as well. We've been partnering with the Department of Education, and they're excited about doing some creative programming with HAC as well. So I may steal you doctors for our education committee too. Nama, I'm sorry, but we're gonna borrow my puete doctor to our education committee as well. You guys I'm gonna put y'all to work, but don't worry, I'm gonna feed y'all. We're gonna give y'all transportation. We have a partnership with DoorDash. DoorDash is our corporate partner. So don't even worry about it. We're gonna make sure we feed y'all. We have other corporate partners too. We're gonna make it work. But I'm really excited. Thank you so much, Dr. Jean, for your Dr. Jean, excusez-moi, for your participation, for being here. We want to support you. We want to praise you. Again, you are our Haitian history, right? There's little girls out there, who are listening out there, who are gonna watch this video tomorrow and during the week. And I'm excited that they get to see a woman like you doing greatness. We have our school in Haiti, right? We have 962 kids at Haitian American Caucus Haiti, HAC Haiti, at our school. And I'm so proud to know that at least my high schoolers, when they're watching these programs, they can look and see women who look like them, and they can aspire to be like them. And that's huge for me. So another plug, feel free, everybody, to learn more about our school in Haiti, HACHaiti.org. We have an elementary, junior high, and high school. We've been educating kids in Haiti since 2003 through our elementary school, and we've expanded since 2010 to all the way up to high school. So I'm really excited about the work that we're doing in quite a bouquet in Haiti through our school and HAC Haiti. But again, Dr. Jean, thank you so much, Dr. Jean, for your participation tonight. I'm overwhelmed. I'm thrilled. I have so much joy in my heart because at the end of the day, I understand access to information and resources will foster self-development and success. That is the Haitian American Caucus. That is our mission statement. That's what we're about. We want to continue to support our people with information and resources and take this to another level. Ladies, thank you so much for tonight. Once again, everybody, you have just been tuned into Haitian American Caucus TV, HAC TV, our Haitian Black History Series 2 programming. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for watching. We look forward to seeing you. Please stay tuned. If you haven't already, go join HAC, www.hacglobal.org/join. We love you. Take care of our community. Thank you and have a great night.
Thank you.
Thank you.